Python. It's the easiest programming language to learn, as well as being the most popular in the world right now. And according to Glassdoor, the salary for new Python developers in the United States is $64,000. If any of this sounds good to you, well then, let's get started. If you need to download Python, go to python.org/downloads and click this yellow Download Python button. Open when done. Check Add Python 3.9 or another version to path. Install now. And then give it a little bit. It states here that setup was successful, so let's close out of this. Our next step is to download an IDE. That's an acronym for Integrated Development Environment. Think of it as software that helps us write other software. One IDE that I recommend is PyCharm. You can find it at jetbrains.com/PyCharm. Go to download. If you would like to pay for a professional version, you can click this download button, but since I don't like to pay for things, I'm going to use the free community version. At this point, we just have to follow the standard installation procedure. Click Next. You can pick a destination folder, but I'll keep the default. Next. If you would like a desktop shortcut, then check this. I would also recommend updating the path variable. Next. Install. And then give it a minute or two. Then after finishing, I have a desktop shortcut, so I can just click on this to run PyCharm. Let's create a new project. Name this project whatever you like. I'm going to name this project Hello World. And I recommend not creating a main.py welcome script right now. I'll show you how to do that manually. And let's create. If you need a Python file to work with, this is how to create one. Go to File, New, Python file, and I'm going to name this main, and then click Python file. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we now have an empty Python script that we can use to begin coding. Now, if you checked this box, create a main.py welcome script, and then created a new project, then your main Python file will probably look a little something like this, but that's completely fine. We can just delete this. I don't know about you guys, but the font is very small for me, so let's change that. We can change that by going to File, Settings, Editor, Font, and you can increase the font size. Let's say 25. You can also change the font too. What's a good one? How about that? Then click Apply and OK. Much better. We can actually see something. To run a Python script, just click this green play button in the corner. Alternatively, you can go to the Run tab and then go to Run. Okay, so this box that appeared at the bottom, this is referred to as a terminal window. This will display any output that your program has. And this line at the end, process finished with exit code 0, that just means that there were no errors in this program. So currently this program doesn't do anything, but let's change that. Let's print something. Let's print a message. So to print a message to the terminal window, type print, and then add a set of parentheses, and then you can type a message, but it has to be within quotes, either double quotes or single quotes. It doesn't matter. So let's think of a message. I don't know. I love pizza. Then let me run this. And in my terminal window, it says, I love pizza. To print another line, just add another print statement. Print, and then your message within quotes. It's really good. And well, what do you know? It printed, I love pizza, it's really good. So ladies and gentlemen, you just wrote your first Python program. By the way, you can change the font as well as the font color of your terminal window by going to File, Settings, then go to Editor, Color Scheme, Console Font, and Console Colors. Let's change the font. Let's say I would like whatever this font is, then click Apply. Let's change the font color too by going to Console Colors. For any output, you can click number 2 and select a color. Let's say I would like bright green. That should be decent. And for anything else, let's say this will be a dark color so I can barely see it. So then let's click Apply and OK. Oh yeah, that's much better. Well, everybody, that was your very first Python program. I'll post any useful links and timestamps for this video in the comments section down below. But yeah, welcome to Coding with Python. Hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. If you learned something new, then help me help you in 3 easy steps by smashing that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's your bro, hope you're doing well, and in this video I'm going to explain how variables work in Python, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support will help keep this channel running. Alright, let's do this. A variable is a container for a value. It behaves as the value that it contains. It's much like in algebra lessons back in the day where we had to solve for whatever value x was, and then we can reuse x and it behaved exactly as that value. Well, with programming, we can do that, plus we can assign variables of different data types, so they are not limited to just numbers. We can assign whole words, numbers, and even these things called booleans, which are either true or false. But I'll get more in depth into data types a little bit later on in this video. So let's create a variable, and this is how to do so. We need a unique name for this variable. Let's say name. Name equals some value. Now the first data type that we'll cover is strings. A string is a series of characters. So to create a string, we can either use single quotes or double quotes in Python, and we can assign this a value of whatever your own name is. So I will assign this variable name a value of bro. Now this variable will behave exactly as if it was this value, this name, and then we can reuse this variable for something. So let's print whatever our name is, print name, and this will print whatever your name is to the console window. Now when you print your variable, make sure you don't put it within quotes, because what we're doing then is literally printing the word name, as you can see here. So if you need to use your variable for something, make sure it's not within quotes. Now we can combine our string variable with another string. So within our print statement, let's print a string literal such as hello space plus name. So we are combining strings, and then we're printing the result to the console window. So this will print hello bro. Now you can actually check the data type of a variable. So I'm going to turn this line into a comment. So what you'll do is take the name of the variable, surround this with a set of parentheses, and then precede the set of parentheses with the type function. And this will print the data type of this variable to the console window. And you can see that it says class str, short for string. A string is a series of characters. A name is a good example of a string, a series of characters. So that is how to check the data type of a variable. Just use the type function. Now you can actually combine variables together as long as they're of the same data type. So let's change our name to maybe first name, and we'll create a second variable called last name. Now a common naming convention with variables, if it has 2 words, separate each word with an underscore. It's not necessary, but it's common practice for Python. And honestly, I sometimes forget about that, but don't tell anybody. So let's create another variable called last name. Last name equals whatever your last name is. And then let's create a third variable called full name, full underscore name. And let's combine first name plus last name. And let us display full name along with hello plus full name. Now, these two names were combined together to create a whole new variable. Actually, what I think I'll do is add a space within my variable. So I'm doing a bunch of string concatenation. I'm combining the variable first name plus a space character plus last name. So the result is hello, whatever your first name and last name is. So that is a variable of the string data type. It is a series of characters. Now, with strings, we cannot normally use these for any sort of math. That's where the next data type comes in. For the time being, I just turned all of these lines into comments, and we are going to move on to the int data type, short for integer. This time, let's create a variable called age, and we will assign this a value of whatever your age is. Let's just say that I'm 21. Now, when you assign a value of the int data type, make sure that it is not within quotes, because then technically it would be a string then, and you can see that the color scheme for this number actually changed. So if this was a string, we would treat it different than an int data type, because with strings, we cannot normally use them for any sort of math. So we now have a variable called age, and we can actually increase or decrease or do whatever we want with the age. Let's increase our age by 1. Let's say it's our birthday. To do so, we would say age equals age plus 1. And then let's print our age to the console window. Print age. And you can see that it says I am 22. Now there's a shorthand way of writing this. What you'll do is type age plus equals 1. So that's kind of like a shortcut, and this would work the same too. Now let's print the data type of our age variable because we can. Within a print statement, I will print the age and add my age variable to this type function, and this will print the data type of my age variable to the console window, and I will turn this line into a comment just so that it doesn't get in the way. Now if I were to print the data type of my age variable, as you can see, it is of the int data type, short for integer. It only stores a whole integer number. Now, what if this was a string? So what I'm going to do is surround my value within a set of quotes, and I will turn this line into a comment so that it does not get in the way. You can see that the data type of my age variable is now a string. And with strings, we cannot normally use them for any sort of math. So let's attempt to increase our age variable by 1. And we ran into an error, a type error, can only concatenate string to string, not int. Now the point being is that it's important to use the appropriate data type, because with strings we cannot normally use them for any sort of math. You'll want to use a data type of a numeric value, an int or a float, which we'll discuss a little bit later. Now here's a situation to consider. What if we would like to display our age variable along with a string literal, much like what we did with this line involving a string literal such as hello plus the user's full name. So let's attempt to do so, and this is not going to work, and I'll explain why. So within our print statement, let's say something such as your age is plus age. Now we're going to run into a type error. That's because we attempted to use string concatenation with a string literal and a variable of a different data type, a variable of the int data type. In order to display our age along with the string, we would need to convert our age variable to the string data type. And one way in which we can do that is by typecasting, and we'll cover this more in the next video. So we're going to surround our age variable, that is of the int data type, with a set of parentheses, and precede this with str, short for string. And this will convert our variable to a string that will allow us to display it with another string. Now, if we were to run this program this way, this will now display your age is, and in this case, 22. So if you need to display a variable of a different data type along with the string, you would just need to use a string cast to convert that data type to a string. But we'll cover this more in the next video on typecasting. So that is the int data type. It stores a whole integer number. And the next data type is the float data type. And I'm going to turn these lines into comments and we can move on. Now, the float data type is a numeric value that can store a number that includes a decimal portion. An int data type cannot store a decimal portion. That's why it's int, short for integer. It only stores a whole number. This time, let's say we have a height, and I will assign this a perfectly normal height of maybe 250.5 centimeters. So this decimal portion is important. That's indicating that this is a floating point number, a float for short. So let's print our height to the console window. Print height, and this will print whatever my height is. And now let's check the type of our height using the type function. So within a print statement, I'm going to add my height, surround this with another set of parentheses, and precede this with the type function. And the data type of my variable height is a float, short for a floating point number, a numeric value that contains a decimal portion. And now for practice, let's print our height along with a string literal. So let's create a string literal such as your height is plus height. But guess what? We're going to do some typecasting. So surround height with a set of parentheses and precede this with str so that we convert height to a string so that we can use string concatenation within this print statement. And this will print the message, your height is 250.5. Actually, let's add centimeters to the end. So plus cm. And there we go. And that is what a floating point number is. Float for short. It is a numeric value that contains a decimal portion. Now, the last data type that we're going to cover is the boolean data type. It is a variable that can only store true or false. Let's say we have a variable called human. If we were to assign this a boolean value, this would be either true or false. And we can print whatever this value is. Let's print whatever human is, and this will display false. Now, the reason that you may want to use booleans instead of strings, even though you can still store a string representation of the word false or true, is that these are very useful when we get to if statements. We can check to see if some statement is true. So that is a good use of boolean values. Now let's check the data type of my human variable. So let's print type human, and this will print to the console window bool, short for boolean. Now make sure you're not putting this within quotes, because then it's technically a string and they behave differently. Now the data type is a string, and you may have noticed as well that the font color has changed between strings and boolean values, so that's another good indicator. Now what if you need to display your value along with a string using string concatenation? Well, guess what? We're going to typecast again. So let's print something. Are you a human? So we need to use string concatenation, so I will convert my boolean variable of human to a string. And I have been programmed to inform you that, yes, I am in fact a human. That is true. Well, everyone, that is the basics of variables. It is a container for a value, and they behave as the value that they contain. There are 4 basic data types: strings, which store a series of characters; ints, which store a whole integer; floats, which are floating point numbers; a numeric value with a decimal; and booleans, which only store true or false, and they're very useful with if statements. So that is it for variables. If you would like a copy of all this code, I will copy and paste all of this to the comment section down below. But yeah, that is how variables work in Python. Hey people, what's going on? It's Bro, hope you're doing well, and in this video I'm going to explain multiple assignment in Python, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Well then, since you clicked on this video, I should probably explain what multiple assignment is. Now, multiple assignment allows us to assign multiple variables at the same time using one line of code. Here's an example of us using standard assignment. Let's say we have a variable name, and I will set this to a value of my name, but you can use your name for this example. Let's say age equals 21, and how about a variable called attractive? I think I'm gonna set this to true. Okay, so we have a bunch of variables, and then we can print the value of these variables with some print statements. So let's print name, age, and attractive. So we have name, age, attractive. And as you would expect, this prints bro, 21, and true. Now, another way in which we could write the same code is to use multiple assignment, and this allows us to assign multiple variables at the same time using one line of code. So I'm going to turn all of these lines into comments, and this time we will only use one line of code. But to do this, we're going to list all of our variables separated with a comma. So that would be name, comma, age, comma, attractive. And we will set them equal to those values, but in the same order, separated by commas. So that would be bro, comma, 21, comma, true. And this would do the same thing, only using one line of code. Here's another example. Let's say we have 4 variables: SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, and Squidward. And let's pretend that they're all around maybe 30 years old. At least it seems like they're around 30 years old, but I could be wrong. I'm not too familiar with SpongeBob lore. So let's set them all equal to 30. Now, we could write this using 4 lines of code, or we could use multiple assignment to write the same thing using 1 line of code. So if all of these variables are all equal to the same value, there's a little bit of different syntax here. So let's begin with the first variable of SpongeBob equals Patrick equals Sandy equals Squidward. Then we're going to set them all equal to 30. And this should work just fine using only 1 line of code. Well, everybody, that's pretty much it for multiple assignment. It allows us to assign multiple variables at the same time using one line of code. I will post all of this code in the comment section down below. And well, yeah, that's how multiple assignment works in Python. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your bro. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate some useful string methods in Python. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, let's do this. In this video, I'm going to be explaining and demonstrating a few useful methods available to us for strings. Now let's create a variable called name for this example, and you can use your own name if you want. So we now have a variable called name. And for my first example, let's print the length of our name variable. So to do that, we can surround our name variable with the length method, and this will print and return how long the length of our string is. And for me, the length of my name variable is 3 for 3 characters. If I were to increase the size of my name, well then that's going to change to 8. So that is the length method, and I'm just going to turn this line into a comment, and let's move on. So next we have the find method. I just copy and pasted print name so I can reuse it. Name dot, and actually if you have IntelliSense set up, if you add dot after your variable, you'll get a suggestion, well, a few suggestions of different methods and other features that you have access to. So let's find, which is, screw this, I'll just type find. Find, then we can find the first index of where this character is. Let's say I would like to find where capital B is. Well, that is at index 0 because computers always start with 0. So this first character would be 0, then R would be 1, and then O would be 2 for this example. Alright, so that is how to find a character within a string. Moving on. So let's capitalize our name, and I should probably make this lowercase. So name dot capitalize, and this will make my name capitalized, but if there's any spaces and then additional words, it's not going to capitalize that, only the first letter in your string. Next, we have upper. This will make your string all uppercase. Name, upper. And now it is uppercase. Guess what's next? Lower. Name, dot, lower. And I should probably make this capital again. And everything is lowercase. We're making some good progress today. Next, we have is digit. This will return true or false, depending on if our string is a digit, which it's not, so this will print false. If I changed my string to a bunch of numbers like 1, 2, 3, then this will return true. Let's change that back and move on. Next we have is alpha. Are these alphabetical characters? Oh, make sure you add the parentheses afterwards, my bad. False, because we added a space within here. Now it's true. So you can use is alpha to check to see if your string contains only letters, alphabetical letters. Next we have count. We can count how many characters are within our string. I would like to count how many O's are in here, and this should return 2. That's right. Okay, we're almost at the end. We can replace characters within our string. So we use the replace method, and we pass in 2 arguments. The character we would like to replace, and the character we would like to replace our character with. I would like to change all O's to A's. And now my name is Brakad. Oh, you guys are gonna like this next one. This isn't technically a method, but it's a really neat feature. So one thing that we can do that's available to us with Python is that we can display a string multiple times by multiplying that string by a given number. So let's say I would like to display my name 3 times. I can just take my string variable, then add times 3, and this will print my name 3 times. Bro. Like I said, not technically a method, but it's a useful feature that you might be interested in that's related. Alright everybody, so that is a few useful methods available to us for strings. If you would like a copy of all this code, I will post this in the comment section down below. But yeah, those are a few useful methods available to us for strings. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's your bro, hope you're doing well, and in this video I'm going to teach you guys all about typecasting in Python, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, welcome back everybody. I have a super quick video for you guys today on the subject of typecasting. Now, typecasting is the ability to convert the data type of a value to another data type. Here's an example that I've written already. I'm just going to paste it. I have three variables for this example, x, y, and z. X contains 1, this is a whole integer, int for short. Y contains 2.0, this is a floating point number, float for short. You can tell it's a float because it ends with a decimal portion. And z contains a string of 3. A string is a series of characters, and you can tell it's a string because it's surrounded with a set of quotes. And remember, with strings, we cannot normally perform math on strings. So I have three print statements for x, y, and z. And as you would expect, they contain the values of 1, 2.0, and 3. Now let's begin by converting both y and z to the integer data type via typecasting. In order to perform typecasting on a value or variable, type that value or variable and surround this with a set of parentheses. Whoops, I missed. And then precede this with the data type you'd like to convert this value or variable to. I would like to convert y to an integer, and then you can use this for whatever you need. So I'm going to replace y within my print statement with y after we typecast it as an integer, and this will display 1, 2, not 2.0, it's the whole integer of 2, and then 3. So this is not a permanent change. If you need to make this as a permanent change to y, you'd have to reassign it. So let's say y equals y, and then we're going to typecast y. So let's surround this with a set of parentheses and precede this with the data type we'd like to convert y to. So now y is a whole integer, and then we will print y without the typecast this time. And our result is 1, 2, 3. Now z is storing a string, and with strings we cannot normally perform any math on strings. For example, within my print statement, I will state z times 3. You would think that the result would be 9, right? Well, you're wrong. It's going to print 3 times. If you need to convert a string to a int or a float, you would just have to typecast it. So this time, let's typecast z as an integer, z int, and we will typecast z as an integer. So then if we have z times 3, the result is now 9 instead of 333. So that's the basic formula for typecasting. Now let's convert these to floating point numbers, but let's include x as well because x is feeling left out. So let's convert x to a floating point number. So float parentheses, and we will surround this with x and display x. And actually, let's convert y and z to floats as well because why not? So the results are now 1.0, 2.0, and 9.0. Remember that we multiplied z times 3. And then if we need to convert these values to a string, we would use the string cast. So the results now are 1, 2.0, and 333. Now you might be thinking to yourself, when would you need to convert an integer or a float to a string? Here's a situation. Let's say within our print statements, we need to print these variables along with another string. So within our print statement, let's say x is plus x. We would like to display these together. And let me copy this and do the same thing for y. We'll say y is plus y. You cannot normally display a string along with an integer or a float because we're using some string concatenation. So this will result in a compilation error. Can only concatenate string, not int to string. So that's a situation in which you might need to use typecasting to convert an integer or float to a string. So let's display x and y as strings via typecasting. So we'll surround x and y with a set of parentheses and precede this with the data type we'd like to convert these values to. We would like to convert x and y to both strings, and now this will compile and run just fine. Well, everybody, that's the basics of typecasting. If you would like a copy of all my code, I will post everything in the comments down below. If you found this video helpful, don't be afraid to help me out by smashing that like button, drop a comment down below,
and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro.